Yeah, because I don't want to shoot. You're right. Very strongly worded. Even yeah, they just sort of shut up. It's unjustified. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean. Any unjustified.
Is having something to, uh, get rid of, like urination or defecation. So if your person is, like he's in need of the to answer the call of nature, then he would do that first, and then he would go to the prayer. The more it is pushing, the more it is disliked, to the extent that maybe the prayer will be void if the person cannot hold himself. Now we come into the prayer of the Musafir, Salat al-Musafir. Salat al-Musafir is important for the person to know it because he bound to travel. And we say that the Musafir, he must shorten the prayer. He cannot make his prayer in full. Shortening the prayer is for the following prayers: Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha. There's no shortening for the Maghrib, and there is no shortening for the Fajr. And you need to know that the prayer, when it was imposed upon the Muslims at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they were imposed in the following manner: 2 for Dhuhr, 2 for Asr, 3 for Maghrib, 2 for Isha, and 2 for Fajr. So it was imposed like this, whether it is traveling or whether it's resident. But later on, when Prophet ﷺ had revelation, it was basically confirmed for the traveler, and then for the resident, there was an addition. So remember, the original prayer is 2, shortened. And that tells us a very important issue, which is that if you prayed in full when you are a traveler, your prayer may not be considered to be valid. So it has to be shortened. because as I said, the prayer was set as short, like this: 2, 3 for Maghrib and 2 for Fajr. So if you pray Dhuhr as 4 when you are a traveler, some scholars deem it to be invalid. The shortening also can go as little as 1 rak'ah, and that is for the Fajr, Dhuhr, and Asr, but not the Maghrib. And that is in the prayer of the fear, in the prayer of the extreme fear. These prayers can be shortened as little as 1 rak'ah, all of them, except for the Maghrib. We don't have a proof to shorten the Maghrib. The Maghrib stays as 3. The person, how does he make the traveling? I mean, when is he considered to be a traveler? What is the distance? We do have a lot of controversial here amongst the scholars to say what is the distance, basically. We cannot just determine a distance. We cannot just say, like some people say, 81 kilometers. It's about 50 miles. We can't really say that. Prophet ﷺ, he had shortened the prayer in 3 miles. So what is the criterion by which you could say that you are a traveler or not? There is 2 things attached to the traveler. Number 1, and that is yourself. You are traveling, you intend to travel, so that's yourself. Number 2 is that the people, what they consider to be a traveling distance. And that, as I said, differs from one place to another. These days with the transport, we could see that the person, he may not consider 3 miles to be traveling. Not like before, he was on top of the camel or walking. Okay? And also the cities have been expanded. The cities have been expanded. You could travel for about 50 miles, you're still within the city borders. Be careful, ya Shaykh. That is not really correct by doing these wires. It's hazards. So you need to put some sort of really hazards. This is. Be careful. Time. So the parameters of the cities now are huge. It's not like before. So can I give you an example? Because as I said, the traveling distance and all of that, we have more than 20 sayings from the scholars. Let's say the person, he is hunting, and he's hunting wild rabbits. And he's seeing the rabbit, maybe it's about half a mile away from him. So he's chasing the rabbit or number of rabbits. And he couldn't catch it. He couldn't hunt it. So he's getting about half a mile, and then he sees them half a mile away from him again. So he keeps adding half a mile. He ended up doing 50 miles. Because he's enjoying the hunting, took him half a day. He's not a traveler because he did not intend to travel. He was adding half and half and half, and he was not. So if he from the beginning intended to go to 50 miles as a traveler, he will be a traveler. Same thing here, have a person as well going for a place where people consider to be not traveling. Give you an example from here. I don't think people, they say, I'm traveling to Luton. It's next door. I don't think people, they would say, I'm traveling to, I don't know what close places from here. Huh? Who? Hamilstead, yeah, what? Okay, I'm going to consult Google here, so I don't know. Hampstead, for example, all these areas. I mean, they are gray areas. I wouldn't say they're clear traveling for the people. But I'm sure that you would say, I'm traveling to Birmingham, I'm traveling to London, I'm traveling to Scotland, I'm traveling. Those are areas which people, they consider to be traveling, not the next door. So if you're not sure, make sure that you pray in full. Now, the person, he will start shortening the prayer as soon as he leaves the parameters of his city. Right. Now, how long can he be shortening the prayer? So let's say he went to London. First day, second day, third day, fourth day. Scholars differed. Again here. Some scholars, they said 3 days. Some scholars say 4 days. Other scholars, they said there is no limitation. If the person intended to stay in the place, then he's not considered to be a traveler from the first day. But if he intended not to stay and he's saying tomorrow I'll leave, and 2 days if my job is finished I'll leave, he's a traveler. And I'll add more for you to understand what is the difference between a traveler and resident. The travel is always attached to things which are mobilizing. Like for example, he would not rent a flat. He will go to hotels or sleep with a friend. He tends to have as well things which are not lasting for a long time. He would have, for example, as well, takeaways, not food to be cooked. Whereas the person who is a resident, he'll buy some utensils and pots and pans and those things that an indication that you're going to stay. As a traveler, you just have food here and there. You're a traveler, okay? And there's no harm for the person to have more than one resident or residential place. So let's say that you come from Pakistan and you have a room there, houses there, and all of things there. So, and you come here and you're a resident here as well. So you're resident in Pakistan and you're resident here as well. So if you go to your town where you live, you're only a traveler within the distance between Pakistan and England, but you're not a traveler where you live in the town of Pakistan or where you live in the town which is in England. Combination between the prayers. Now, combination between the prayers, that is Dhuhr and Asr together at the time of Dhuhr or Asr, and Maghrib and Isha, and that is at the time of Maghrib or the time of Isha. There is no Jam' combination between Fajr to any prayer. Now, that is not compulsory for the person who is a traveler. It is made as a concession. So remember, shortening the prayer is compulsory, but combining the prayer is a concession. So the person is left for him to decide. This combination can be for a traveler, and also could be a combination inside the masjid behind the imam, and that is for abnormal circumstances like extreme coldness, snow, torrential rain. So those things might decide the imam to combine, and this is not for you to combine at home. So you see it outside snowing, I could combine between Dhuhr and Asr. No, unless you're traveling, of course. But this is for the combination in the masjid. So instead of coming to the masjid twice, you could come once, Dhuhr and Asr. And this combination has to be at the beginning of the prayer. That means at the first prayer. It's not like the traveler. You could combine Dhuhr and Asr by delaying Dhuhr to the Asr. But this type of combination, you cannot delay it. So for example, let's say the imam is on the Dhuhr prayer. He would come and he would say, guys, we don't have to pray Dhuhr now. Why? Because the weather forecast say there will be snow at the Asr. So let's just combine at the Asr time. It doesn't work like this. It has to be at the beginning of the Dhuhr. And the combination takes place after the prayer, the first prayer, not before. Meaning the decision for taking the combination is after the prayer is finished, not before it. Because the weather could change while you're praying. And this is a controversial as well. The Shafi'i madhab has to have a link between the rain in the first prayer and the second prayer. And that is why you'll find the person following Imam Shafi'i, he'll have a window where you could see the outside or next to the Qibla side and want to see, or you'll ask people, can you just please see for me the weather? No, it's not like that. We decide from the beginning, the first prayer is finished. So let's say we prayed the Dhuhr and it was mashallah, sunny. The Imam had never had the intention of combining. Suddenly while he's praying, the weather just changed completely. And it was really raining and torrential and cold. So he could just go and say that I want to combine. Now the combination here is, for the people, it's supposed to be to comply with this. Meaning you should not leave. But let's say you are a person who do not believe in this combination. Either because you're a different madhab, which shouldn't be, or maybe because you think that these circumstances that the Imam had decided upon it to have combination is not really strong enough. It's not really. This Imam is, for example, is a bit, watering down the issue. So I wouldn't say, but you pray with them as a voluntary, because it's not good to split the Jama'ah. So you pray with them, consider your Asr prayers to be voluntary, come to the Asr prayer. And remember, if the Imam had combined for the sake of the rain or the sake of the snow, let's say the Dhuhr prayer or the Maghrib prayer, he has to as well make sure that the masjid will establish the Asr prayer. Because not everybody came to the Dhuhr and combined. Some people did not. So they should make the masjid have the adhan and all of that for the people to come. From the sunnah as well, when we have the rain, is that the mu'adhin, if you remember to say, as-salatu sallu fi rihal, pray at home, pray at home. So when the person, he is in charge of a masjid and it's extreme weather, he should make sure that when he makes the adhan, that's the sunnah, is to say, pray at home. Instead of come to the prayer, pray at home. Or after the adhan, he would say, pray at home, pray at home. So don't pray, that means don't come, because it's going to be harmful maybe. You might slip, you might, so that is the prayer for the combination for the sake of the extreme weathers or circumstances. A person can as well combine for a very persisting need, but not a habitual need. Doctor, he's got a surgery, and the patient's surgery is going to take a long time. In winter time, between Dhuhr and Asr, is very, very limited time. So if he enters before Dhuhr, he might, for example, he needs to come out at the Maghrib time. He needs about 3-4 hours, okay, for the operation, okay, for the surgery operation. So he would combine here. This is called persisting need. Also, the person who is ill, okay, and whatever illness that causes difficulty for the person, then he could combine between the prayers. Remember, the combination here is according to what the person wants to do the combination, whether it is at the later prayer or at the beginning of the prayer. Let's say Dhuhr and Asr at Dhuhr time, or Dhuhr and Asr at Asr time, Maghrib and Isha at Maghrib time, or Maghrib and Isha at Isha time. But remember, Isha finishes at midnight. Remember that. Also, this combination in Arafah and Muzdalifah, and that is for the person making Hajj. So, Dhuhr and Asr, we pray it in Arafah combined. And I'm saying this because we have Madhab Hanafi, they don't combine. But even if you are Madhab Hanafi, do not split the Jama'ah. Pray with them and then pray on your own later on if you think that your prayer combination is not correct. Also, Maghrib and Isha in Muzdalifah to be combined. This combination of Maghrib and Isha in Muzdalifah, ideally to say that it's to be combined at Maghrib time, but you could combine it as well at Isha time if you can't arrive at it, on the time. طيب. This combination in Muzdalifah is not because it's Hajj. No, this is for convenience. So the person may as well pray Maghrib on its own and Isha on its own. Not like the combination of Arafah. The combination of Arafah is for the sake of Hajj, for the sake of the rituals of the Hajj. Jam'u Suri, it is the non-genuine combination, the virtual combination. What does that mean? If you remember when we talked about the woman who has got prolonged period, it's not the period, prolonged period. That means it's not menses. It's called istihada. She has to pray, but she's got blood coming out, not at the regular time, not at the menses time. So this woman, she could have, because she must have wudu for every single prayer. For Dhuhr has to have prayer. For Asr has to have, wudu. Maghrib has to have wudu. Once she has wudu in the Dhuhr, her wudu will be invalid at Asr. But she could make one wudu for 2 prayers. How? Delay the Dhuhr to the end of the time, bring the Asr at the beginning of the time. And that is called combination, which is virtual. It's not real, because she did not pray the Asr in the Dhuhr, or she pushed the Dhuhr into the Asr. But actually, she delayed the Dhuhr to the end of the time. Let's say Asr now starts at 3 o'clock. So she would pray Dhuhr at 2:50. And she would pray Asr 3:02, for example. And that will be with one wudu, no problem, inshallah. Now we come into the Jumu'ah. And that is an important topic. Jumu'ah is compulsory upon the following. The Muslim. So if he's not a Muslim, there's no compulsory upon him. The person who is adult. If he's not an adult, it's not compulsory. The person who is free. If he's not free, if he's a slave, it's not compulsory. The male, if he's a female, it's not compulsory upon her to pray the Jumu'ah. And number 5, the one who is able physically, able to come to the masjid. Maybe he's ill, so he's free from excuses. There is no, for example, beast on the road. He's not scared from a tyrant leader. All these excuses. And also, if he's attached to abnormal circumstances. Let's say, for example, he's looking after somebody who is ill and he can't leave him. He's exempted from the Jumu'ah. So if he's looking after somebody who is ill, okay, then he is excused from coming to the Jumu'ah. The Jumu'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He had mentioned it in the Quran, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, idha nudiya lis-salati min yawmi al-jumu'ah, fas'aw ila dhikrillah. O you who believe, if the Jumu'ah Salah is being called for, then come to the remembrance of Allah. وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعَ, and stop buying and selling, transaction. ذَلِكُمْ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. This is better for you if you know best. And its Jumu'ah is compulsory. And its time is not as people think is Dhuhr time. The Jumu'ah can start and finish before the Dhuhr. With the hadith of Abi Sa'id al-Khudri, that which is in Sahih al-Bukhari, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or hadith Jabir ibn Abdullah, that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to pray the Jumu'ah, finish it, and then we come out and still Dhuhr hasn't started. So the Jumu'ah can be started at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. No problem. Now, but in this time, if you pray it like this, remember the Musafir, if he doesn't pray the Jumu'ah, then he has to pray the Dhuhr, and Dhuhr has to be at the Dhuhr time. But if you pray Jumu'ah before the Dhuhr, you cannot combine Asr with it until the Dhuhr time kicks in. Okay, you cannot combine the Asr. Some of the scholars say that it's not allowed to combine Asr to Jumu'ah, but that is a weak opinion. You could combine, there is no difference. We find that the Quran and the Sunnah emphasizes the importance of this prayer. So they have warning. For example, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if a person leaves off 3 Jumu'ahs, one after the other, Allah will put a seal on his heart. That means you're not going to be having any understanding of the deen. You're not going to be responding to the Quran or the Sunnah. Allah's Messenger, he said, طَبَعَ اللَّهُ عَلَى قَلْبِ. Allah will put a seal on his heart. And another hadith, he will be recorded amongst the hypocrites. You cannot abandon the Jumu'ah. You have to come to the Jumu'ah unless you have an excuse. Now, when am I going to be exempted if I am, for example, away from the masjid? The Jumu'ah doesn't need to have a masjid. So if you are at work, you could make Jumu'ah at work. All you have to do is to get one person, and that's the correct opinion. So the minimum number for Jumu'ah is 2 people, 1 khatib and 1 listener. It's not like what some people think, it is 40 people, because it's not authentic. So 1 person who's khatib and the other one is listener. طيب, let's say I'm in a remote area, in the middle of nowhere. What is the minimum distance for me to have the Jumu'ah compulsory upon? Then, if you haven't got a place within a radius of almost, you could say, 4.5 miles, 4 miles, in the radius of 4 miles, if you don't find a place, then you're exempted for the Jumu'ah. It means you don't find a person to go make a Jumu'ah with within the radius, then the Jumu'ah is not compulsory upon you. The khutbah of the person who's making the Jumu'ah is also compulsory, and it's compulsory upon the person to attend this khutbah. How the Prophet used to do the khutbah? He makes it 2 parts. Those 2 parts almost equal to each other. It's wrong to see, unfortunately, so many imams or khatib, when they make the khutbah, they make the second part so much short, even half of the time of the first part. And that's not from the fiqh of the faqih. The Khatib was Faqih. Faqih, he will know that both two parts are almost the same. Almost the same. Not to be, of course, longer than the first part, but not to be so short compared to the first part. And the person as well makes sure that he does not prolong the khutbah. The longest khutbah I have ever heard of, which is, by the way, conveyed to me with mutawatir, that means not a lie, that it was 90 minutes khutbah, which was done in the capital of my country now, Amman, by a person I know who he is. I call him the clown. Break, and another 35 minutes, and he came to the khutbah, and he's been spotted by so many people. As I said, it's mutawatir, with a red cap, with training suit, and also with yellow and red cards. And he made the khutbah as a battle between the kuffar and the Muslims. So it's like kuffar is playing against the Muslims. And then in the middle of the khutbah, people are laughing their head off in the khutbah. So, for example, when Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu, the Battle of Uhud, he went from the other side of the mountain of Uhud, he said, offside. And he said, and then he's got a whistle. That is like, I would say, he's belittling the pulpit. He's belittling the sunnah of the Prophet. It's unbelievable. Unheard of. Khutbah is to include things which is suitable to the people. It is not the 6 o'clock news. Some of the khatib that bring me onto the pulpit what this leader had done and what that leader has done, and what the parliament had decided and what the parliament did not decide. No. Khutbah is to teach the people how to worship Allah properly. It's not the khutbah to say to them, this leader had put the gas price £2 up. Look at what happened to the electricity. We're paying the double. That's not the khutbah. Teach the people what is needed in religion. It starts with khutbah al-hajah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. To the end of the khutbah al-hajah. And the person, when he's in the khutbah, he should listen. Only is allowed to talk to the imam himself if there is a need. Say, for example, it's raining outside and people are outside and the imam can't see that, so the person can just speak to the khatib, not to somebody else, to inform him of what is happening. Or like, for example, there's a fire. Even enjoining good and forbidding evil. If you saw somebody speaking, you cannot. So the Prophet, if it be in the Prophet of Allah sallallahu is being mentioned, you could now say sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but not in the khutbah. You have to be focused on the khutbah. Person can is considered to be had caught up with the Jum'ah if he's caught up with a rak'ah with the imam. So if you caught up with the rak'ah with the imam, then you caught up with the prayer. If you caught up with the rak'ah with the imam, you caught up with the Jum'ah. Now, if you did not catch up with the one rak'ah, the scholars had differed. So he came after. So if you caught up with the ruku' of the second rak'ah, you add up a rak'ah. But if you came after the ruku' of the second rak'ah, the scholars had differed. Some of them they said, you pray Dhuhr. Some of them they said, no, it depends. If the person, he was keen to come, then regardless of what he caught up with, he will do the Jumu'ah. Because this is for the person who hasn't got an excuse. And for the one who's got no excuse, then there is no Jumu'ah for him, he has to repent to Allah. But hang on a second, if the Jumu'ah was to be done before Dhuhr, how can this person pray Dhuhr? If the Jumu'ah was performed what? Before Dhuhr time. Dhuhr prayer. Allahu A'lam, he only prays 2 rak'ah, regardless. But he will be sinned if he has got no excuse. 2 rak'ah. But the hadith here says he will be caught up with the prayer if he had caught up with the ruku' of the last rak'ah. Now, do we have sunnah for the Jumu'ah? There's no sunnah before, there's sunnah after. Sunnah after is 2 rak'ah or 4 rak'ah. Both are at home. The best of the prayer is to pray at home except for the what? obligatory. Before the Jumu'ah, if you come into the masjid, you may not sit down unless you pray 2 rak'ah, Tahiyyat al-Masjid. Khatib is delivering his khutbah. You have to pray 2 rak'ah, but make them light. Don't pray for a long time. But if you came early, and it's a masjid, start with Tahiyyat al-Masjid, then you have an option. Either to sit and make dhikr of Allah and pass salutation upon the Prophet, which is recommended, or recite Surah Al-Kahf, which is recommended on the day of Jumu'ah. Or the other option is to keep praying until the Imam says Salamu Alaikum to start his khutbah. So you got the 2 options. But if you came to a non-masjid, a hall, a room, then there is no Tahiyyat al-Masjid. There is no Tahiyyat al-Masjid. Not a masjid, you must what? Sit down. If you came to a non-masjid, like here, Fleetville, have ghusl. You did not have the ghusl, you sinned. But let's say you didn't have time, you don't have a sin. In both cases, the wudu will suffice for your prayer to be valid. Also, the person is supposed to be looking after himself when he comes to the Jumu'ah, smelling nice, because you can sit with the people. You want to kill them with horrible smell coming from the sweat or bad socks, whatever. Clean, you have to be clean, or clothes full of smell. Okay, so put the best of clothes, new clothes, nice perfume. Okay, as the Prophet ﷺ had told us, and also come as early as possible. This is one of the things that the Ummah will leave and abandon and forsake, and that is tahjir. Comes early to the Jumu'ah. People now these days, they just come when the Khatib is on the pulpit. Tahjir was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, people come as early. Allah ibn Mas'ud, when he came and he found 3 people before him, he was blaming himself. He said, what is this? So he calmed himself down. He said, well, it's only the 4th, and the 4th is not going to be far from the mercy. رابع ثلاثة وليس في رابع وليس رابع ثلاثة ببعيد. He's like telling himself, calm down, I know I've done a mistake. Because his self has got used to come what? Coming now the 4th, blaming himself. Now we come when there is nobody there, and say, alhamdulillah, I caught up with a salutation. No khutbah, nothing. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, he who does wudu and perfected, and then he comes early to the masjid in the first hour, من توضأ فأحسن الوضوء ثم جاء في الساعة الأولى, first hour. It's like sacrificing a camel. I don't think you'll be able to sacrifice a camel these days. It costs more than £1,000. Unless you are wealthy, mashallah. So you are sacrificing a camel every time you come to the Jumu'ah. Second hour, a cow. Third hour, a ram. Fourth hour, chicken. Fifth hour, forwarding an egg. After that, nothing. People don't even forward an egg. Nothing. And Prophet ﷺ, he is telling us to come as in these early hours. Imagine that. Now these hours are measured from, supposedly, from the sunrise. Between sunrise and the start of the khutbah of the Imam, divided in 5 segments. 5 segments. So let's say now, what is the time of the sunrise? What time is sunrise? It's about 7? Let's say 7 o'clock. So I'd say, I'm just saying 7 o'clock. I'm for the sake of calculation. 7 o'clock. And what time is Dhuhr? Jumu'ah? 1 o'clock. It's about 6 hours, isn't it? Is it 6 hours? 6 hours, yes. Divide that into 5 segments. Okay, it's an hour and 10 minutes. An hour and 15 minutes. Right. So first he came in the first 1 hour and 15 minutes, you sacrifice it. You might say to me, well, the masjid is closed. That's true. And that makes it easy for you. So the time will be measured now from the time the masjid is open. MashaAllah. When does he open? About an hour and a half before the time. So divide that by 5 times. First maybe 10 minutes, it's like giving a camel. So you wait outside, you're forwarding a camel. You are sacrificing a camel. Then a cow, then a ram, then a chicken, then an egg. Now, the hadith says that there are angels outside recording the one who comes first. Then, when the Imam ascends the pulpit, says, Assalamu alaikum, the angels will roll their scrolls and sit down to listen to the khutbah. So Abu Imam al-Bahili, who is the one who narrated the hadith, was asked, the one who comes after the khatib has said, Salamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, has he got a Jum'ah? He said, yes, he's got a Jum'ah, but he's not one of those people whom his name is being recorded in those special records. You're not going to be recorded there. If you want to be recorded, come in those times before the khatib ascends the pulpit. Right. As I said, from the things which is recommended is to pass salutation upon the Prophet, and that start the night before. So Al-Khamis, Thursday night, Maghrib starts by passing salutation until the following sunset of Al-Jumu'ah. Reciting Surah Al-Kahf. Scholars different. When does it start? Start from the sunrise. Sunrise of the Jumu'ah until the sunset. Even if you haven't recited it, do it after that, even after sunset. But make sure you do that. That is, Prophet ﷺ said it will give you a light between the two Jumu'ahs. Light of guidance. It could give you a light between you and the Bayt al-Atiq as well. Also make dua in the last hour of the Asr, which is after Asr, the last hour before Maghrib. Make dua in that time. For the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-Jumu'ah, the Jumu'ah is 12 hours. There is 1 hour in it. If the person happens to be asking Allah, standing up, asking Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah will grant him. Regardless of what he asks, as long as he doesn't ask haram. Fine. If you have more than one masjid, go to the masjid of the Sunnah. If you have more than one masjid of the Sunnah, go to the one which is bigger. Okay, the one which is larger. So both of them are Masjid Sunnah, mashallah. Go to the one which is what? Accommodated for more people. Will be more reward. If the Jumu'ah happens to be on the day of the Eid, then the following takes place. The person, he has to come to the Eid prayer, regardless. And the Eid prayer, according to the correct opinion, is compulsory. But if you came to the Eid prayer, you don't have to come to the Jumu'ah prayer. It is recommended to come, but it's not compulsory. Now, if you haven't come to the Jumu'ah prayer, what do? You pray at Dhuhr or not? Scholars, some of them, they said, oh, Shaykh al-Bayt, no Dhuhr. Because your Jumu'ah is being included with the Eid prayer, as the Prophet ﷺ said. And the Imam has to do two prayers, Eid and Jumu'ah, because not everybody came to the Eid. So he's to do as well Jumu'ah khutbah. But maybe it's good to revive this sunnah that if you are known to be a sheikh or something, if you pray the Eid, don't come to the Jumu'ah. To show the people it's allowed. Some people, they're scared to leave the Jumu'ah. But when you don't do the Jumu'ah, as I said, it's controversial. Do you pray Dhuhr or not? If you want to be on the safe side, pray the Dhuhr. But if you believe there's no Dhuhr because the Jumu'ah is included, alhamdulillah. Because it's controversial. By this, we come inshallah to the break time for 10 minutes, yes? Yes? And then